y'all doing? That I come to read. Okay, we're on chapter 9. Okay, how y'all been? Hope y'all been great. Trying to stay great no matter what. Okay, so let's see what we got. I got all this junk right here. All right, we got better questions. Vern was right. Vehyn. I did come back to the dark fortress. If fortress could even encompass its sheer size, they lay beyond the black door, and not only because of the vague, looming treat of some terrible consequences if I didn't. I wanted my answers. I needed them. More than knowing what I had done by opening the black door. I wanted to know why my mother had died and who had killed her. Then I wanted to kill them. And maybe I couldn't resist making another peek behind the black door. Not that I forgot about the danger, especially as I stepped over the threshold for a second time on a prearranged evening. It was nearly all I had thought about in the past days. Nakia, as well as my tutor, and even Jardis, her dad, who actively tried not to notice me, had commented on my distraction. While my thoughts roamed, a chorus of anxious questions rose constantly in the background. What would my mother think of all this? Who was Vern? What was he? Vehyn, however you say that word. This time he was waiting for me in an immense entrance hall. Oh, that's the one that she went through the black door. Although he appeared otherwise occupied, gazing down the center shaft of the great spiral staircase, I didn't approach too closely, in case he decided to hurl me inside into it. Camilla, he said, turning and smiling, shocking me once again with his youthful face and strange eyes, his overworldly beauty. You came. Yes, I shifted on my feet, breathless and ready to run for my life. So I'm here. Now what? He cocked his head, and impatient are we? I held my end of the deal. I want answers, and you'll get them. But first, I want to show you something. He headed right for me and held out his hand, which looked especially pale against the strike of midnight floor between us. Feeling like I was once again opening the door, trying not to think about what it meant, I took his hand. Oh yeah, when they be YouTube be blocking them, I be having it on live. I don't know why they be blocking it out. I didn't notice the last video they had blocked out, but I put it back on live. Anyway, feeling like I was once again opening the door, trying not to think about what it meant, I took his hand. Despite his skin being warm and silky smooth, I could feel the strength beneath it. We climbed, not the spiral staircase, but dozens of others, taking twists and turns I never could have remembered. I tried not to dwell upon the endless hallways stacking behind me, walls upon walls tapping me here. Even so, my eyes hungrily ate up every step into this strange, dark labyrinth, Labyrinth, and they traced him online over and over, traced him outline over and over again in weary curiosity. Not human. And yet he wasn't turning around and lunging at me or sprouting claws or fangs. The longer he didn't, the less weary and the more curious I became. This one? Oh, hold on, yeah. Okay. Yo, good luck. Sorry about that, y'all. I'm back. Alrighty then, let's continue. Continue on. Okay. I'm trying to debate at some point. Do I want to pick me some coffee? Let's see what time it is. All right. And yet it was turning around and lunging at me, sprout claws or fangs. The longer he didn't, the less weary and more curious I became. We eventually merged onto a tower rooftop. Oh, and just, sometimes you listen better when you don't see the person, you know what I mean? We eventually merged into a tower rooftop, shrouded in blackness, looking out over a seemingly endless rise and full of the spears and bridges of the fortress. There, in the center of the rooftop, stood a round black table, small, intimate, by the usual proportions of this place, dwarfed by its surroundings. Red roses blossom in a vase, and a spread of shining silver plates and gleaming wine glasses awaited us on the table. Who had laid it out? I had no idea. I highly doubted he did, which meant it might have been the fortress itself, since no one else was here. He pulled out one of the two tall back black chairs for me. I hesitated. He grinned, flashing those sharper than usual canines. I'm not going to bite. His voice was rich with amusement. There are a lot of other ways you could hurt me, I said quickly, trying not to look at his teeth. Oh boy. His dark eyes grew more serious. I promise I will let no one harm befall you. I will let no harm befall you, Camilla. The words were so certain, so absolute, that I found my feet carrying me forward. I tried to ignore him as I sat down and he scooted my chair in, but he was warm behind me, like a fire. When he moved away, I breathed a sign of relief, or maybe simply a release from the tension. Before long, we were facing each other over the table. Wine, he asked. Who killed my mother? Uh, uh, he paused his lips and made a shining noise, but his eyes were alight with mark, merit. So soon, if we eat desserts before the meal, you won't be hungry for the rest. And what exactly is that supposed to mean? There were many steps to get out to this tower. No. Take it slow. Enjoy the journey. You mean you won't tell me right away because I won't keep coming back? If you want to look at it in such a harsh light. Did you kill my mother? I didn't think he had. I didn't know how he could have, being trapped in here without a body in a waking world. But I wanted to shock him into giving me at least sort of the answer. All he said emphatically was, that's not how this works. You don't get to ask a question until you answer mine. I blinked. What question? He lifted the bottle. Would you like any wine? I couldn't help the sharp, short laugh that drifted off of me. I take that as a yes. He reached to pour, gracefully holding the sleeve of his black robe away from silver platters. The liquid splashed into my glass was dark as blood at night. I eyed it suspiciously and then remembered myself that he could have killed me well before now. Why go to the trouble of poisoning me? I took a mouthful, heavy, rich, and sweet, just how I liked it, except better than anything I had ever tasted in the waking realm. I couldn't resist taking another sip, and then regretted it when my head began to buzz almost instantly. It was strong. I made my voice firm, steady. I answered your question. Now you should answer mine. No, he said. I thought he was refusing me until he added, I didn't kill your mother. But then, my turn, he interrupted. What is your favorite dish? My favorite dish? That was what he wanted to know. I even thought he might already know, since he seemed to have intruded my preferences with the wine. Garlic and coconut crusted octopus with papaya and peppers. Oh. Before I could finish, he whipped away the silver lid of one of the platters, and there it was, papaya and pepper sauce and all. I didn't know if he anticipated what I would say or if this place had conjured it upon my word. Whatever the case, I couldn't help but be a little impressed, despite myself. I doubted the meal would nourish me in any measurable way, but it tasted divine as I took a bite. I didn't allow eating to stop my flow of questions, though. Where are we? Where I live, he answered patiently, not sampling the food, only taking small sips of wine. That's not an answer. Are we even in the sleeping realm? No, somewhere just outside of it. But where? Elsewhere, before I could groan, he said, Kamala, you might consider that you would get better answers if you asked better questions. I glared at him. Okay, then. No, my turn again, he said, making me grit my teeth. What do you like to do in your leisure time? Read, play gods and kings, explore souls, receive answers to my questions. He leaned back in his chair and stapled his fingers, studying me as if I were a puzzle box. You will, I promise. When? When it's time. I nearly bent my silver utensil as my hand crunched around it. But do you like living at your father's house? At your father's? My irritation ebbed like a wave, leaving me feeling bare and grittedly raw. No. Why? There was two answers for him, but I barely noticed. I miss my mother. It wasn't the real explanation, or maybe it was at the heart of it. His sharp dark eyes seemed to soften. Camilla, just know if ever you need a place, any escape, you'll always be welcome here. My throat squeezed down tight against my wall, and I focused on the red of the roses, the shine of the silver, the residue of sweet wine on my tongue. I would not cry in front of him, not at the first bite of kindness he showed me. Quickly, more harshly than I intended, I answered, Why? Why do you want my company? Why is that surprising to you? He responded, unruffled. Do you not hold yourself in high regard? Now my cheeks threatened to flush because not always was the answer, and it shamed me. I knew I should honor and take pride in myself like my mother had always taught me, and yet I could not easily recall my shortcomings. Instead, instead of indulging him with an honest reply, I said, receiving only more questions in response to my own doesn't inspire me to answer. He smiled. I appreciate your company because you are the most interesting person I ever met. I spattered over my wine, spitted or whatever, over my wine, even allowing for self-honor and pride. I found that hard to believe. I'm not the only person you ever met, am I? His eyes gleamed and he laughed. No, Camilla, you're not. That still doesn't make sense, I snapped. You don't know a thing about me. He arched a dark eyebrow. I don't? His disregard was making me feel warm and strange. Or maybe that was the wine. At least you shouldn't, I grumbled. I don't know anything about you. Someday, he said, his words heavy as a surprise. It sounded both enticing and foreboding, and that, more than anything else, made me stop questioning him for the moment. For the rest of the night, he indulged me by playing the tour guide, leading me to new places I could have never imagined behind the black door. We ventured through vast arches and vaults, stretching galleries lined with windows opening into nothing, and always stairs, endless twisting and twining stairs. The tour ended with him leading me into the bowels of the fortress. The place he took me didn't seem as unfathomable deep as the well of the great spiral staircase, but it hinted at such depth just the same. The underground cavern had an arching bridge spanning a wide crevasse. As we stood on the bridge, I leaned over the railing and looked down. The world seemed to end beneath my feet, in a vast of nothing, chasm. When I shrouded, he put his strong arms on my shoulders. For a brief, fearful second, I thought he might shove me over the railing and off into oblivion, but instead he steadied me. I didn't shroud his hands off me. I should have been alarmed at his touch, but I wasn't. Why I wasn't was beyond me. Maybe his hands even felt good, but that was as far as it went. I certainly didn't want him to try anything else, deadly or otherwise, and somehow I trusted he wouldn't. He sighed, almost in pleasure. This is one of my favorite places here. It's the bottom of that spiral staircase. Another one, I answered, unable to tear my eyes away from the void, because they're both equally terrifying. Hmm. Which was true. The stairs were more terrifying since they invited one down into the darkness, making it a place I could actually try to go. I'll make sure I go 2 pages. Okay. His hand slid away, and I turned to face him, almost missing the feel of him. He gave an answer to a question I hadn't asked. That spiral staircase has no bottom. I suggested as much, but it still made I guessed as much, but it still made me shiver to hear the impossible truth spoken so plainly. Despite my fear, my guilt, my impatience, I found the Black Fortress utterly fascinating. Looking around, I was consumed by the same awe as when I looked at a map of Opia and tried to imagine everything the island contained. Except this place felt bigger than any entry continent, while being somehow more accessible. That made it even more intriguing. And yet, like the fortress itself, my fascination was rooted in something darker than the waking world, as was he himself, and perhaps my growing fascination with him. He apparently had a different concept of time than I did, because those eventual answers to my questions never seemed to arrive. Another 4 weeks passed in his house, punctuated by 4 more trips behind the black door. The required number of visits. My 18th birthday approached. I never forgot that he was human, but he didn't seem to want to hurt me. That he wasn't human. Okay, I was going to say. I never forgot that he wasn't human, but he didn't seem to want to hurt me. If torturing me with impatience didn't count, and so gradually I began to relax in his presence. And all that time, he never answered a single question in a way that didn't leave me with more. For one visit to vex him because he was vexing me with his vagueness and arrogance, I only stayed for a short while. Since I stuck to the terms of our agreement, he couldn't do anything about it, or at least he didn't try to. This latest visit, I felt deprived of the world behind the black door, not of him, though, I told myself, and so I wandered the black fortress with him for what felt like hours in the sleeping realm. My mind was conscious while soul walking, so even though my body rested, I never felt as rejuvenated after nights like these. As soon as my mind was alert enough to think the next morning, I was disgusted with myself. My mother had been dead for 2 months, and I was no closer to figuring out why, despite opening the black door. That wasn't why I'd opened it in the first place, but now I desperately hoped something could be gained from doing the one thing my mother had forbidden me. If Bud wouldn't give me answers, I would find them on my own. But I knew only one group who might have them, the Twilight Guard. I told myself that I didn't have to join them to spy on them. I bided my time until Nakia and a few guards were readying to accompany my dad on a trip to the port side market. Household servants went unto the city daily on ruffling smaller errands, and I was never allowed to come along. But packing up a bulk load of dry goods required an army escort. Nakia frowned when I asked her if I could come as well. I'm not sure your father will grant you permission. He wants everyone to forget you exist, at least until he presents you at court. I'm in danger of forgetting I exist, I muttered. My self-pity seemed to help my case, because Nakia gazed softly. I'll ask. She pursued her lips, whatever her lips, Pursed. As much as I hated to say it, wearing a scarf would help if you stay covered. Of course, I said. I had no problem keeping the sun off my head and paying respect to Hashima at the same time, especially if it would encourage my dad to allow me to leave. Miraculously, my dad wasn't out on business, and even more miraculously, he agreed to the excursion, as long as I promised to stick close to Nakia and keep my head down and covered. Maybe he felt bad about the fact that I'd been cooped up indoors the last couple of months, or maybe he just wanted me out of his way, where I could go be a bother to someone else. He even gave each of us a small purse of coins. I cringed inward as Nikhil helped me into the carriage and took a seat next to me. I hoped that I wouldn't cause her too much trouble or worry, but there was nothing else for it. The carriage was departing. Father sat up front with the driver, while a couple of guards followed on horseback. White rows of beautiful town houses fell away as we rode down the hill, away from the palace at the highest point of the city under the mountains, and the weather neighborhoods nestled beneath its walls toward the center of town. The city's architect had room to flourish. Beautiful pomegranates lined the streets. White stone columns arched into balconies that overflowed with greenery, providing cool, fresh shade in the heat. Coral fountains and gazebos bloomed on street corners and in busy intersections, their round tops echoing the white and bronze domes that defiled the bright skyline, pointed like onions. Scallop open melons are simply smooth hemispheres that glow like rising suns against the sky. At the fountain's centers, surrounded both the glittering flow of water and mosaic, stood stunning statues of the gods, tan with solid gold eyes and hair flaring in the sunlight against his dark visage. Heshima, with her serenely smiling face of white marble dripped in onyx locks, warm skin Rata, RANTA, pre-offering bushels of wheat and um, bouquet of flowers as artfully rendered. They look real. I'd heard that in other lands they had rules against depicting the gods outside of temples or at all. The gods even went by different names, though they still represented the sun, the moon, and the earth, the father, the mother, and the daughter. The holy trio had risen to replace the more multi, multi gods and mythical beings from a forgotten age. Still, the entire world acknowledged Shalin, Shalin, as a holy city, the birthplace of the oldest, most traditional form of God's worship. Here it was only the king who forbade his own likeness into public, supposedly to pay respect to the gods by not attempting to intimidate them. As we neared the port market, most of the grandeur dropped away, but what remained was no less exciting. More organic and chaotic buildings sprouted up around us, jumbles of stone and wood like cockle teeth in a smile, with colorful awnings and jittering stalls. Only clay statues of Ranta could be seen here in small, rough-hedged alcoves, whatever we said. Racks of beautiful cloth and woven rugs, along with tables of fruit and fresh fish, spilled out into the streets, making traffic impossible. Soon we had to park the carriage and continue on foot. I spotted all manner of people buying, selling, and trading, from nobles to wealthy merchants to hurried servants to those barely better than beggars, and quite a few actual beggars. My father immediately embarked into the fray, attended by several guards, while Nakia stayed with me. We didn't need to go with them. We don't need to go with them, I asked. They'll be fine without me. Nakia grinned and stretched. Besides, I wouldn't mind a break from bargaining for flour, beans, and nuts for the next 2 hours. I prefer fresh air instead, though I wouldn't mind some of these. She dropped a coin into a past vendor hand and scooped up a handful of cashews from his cart, ignoring his look of astonishment, perhaps at her armor or the brashness with which she conducted herself, both usually reserved for men. The nuts were roasted with a mix of cinnamon and spiced pepper. She passed me half, and they were still warm as I ate one, thinking, Nakia and I being on our own would make my plan easier, but I couldn't lose focus in all the excitement. There was nothing I'd rather do than wander the market with her, taking in the sights and smells and flavors, but I indulged myself enough behind the black door. I tossed back my cashews quickly and dusted off my palms, already stuck in the heat. I really like to go to a wine shop. I'd heard Elva's is a good place. Nikhil blinked at me. Why? Sir, your father has plenty of wine down in the cellar. You remember he's from the Rasha province, right? There's a particular kind that he doesn't have that my mother liked and import. That much was true. I thought I tasted might remind me of her. I thought a taste of it might remind me of her. I actually never cared much for the flavor, too dry, but such an excuse would prevent Nakia from questioning me much. She didn't, only frown as if she didn't like the thought of me drinking. It didn't matter that we were many years apart in age and that we weren't a minute, okay. And that I was only a week away from turning 18. I still wasn't a legal adult yet, and she was my guardian, which made her touch parental at times, not just protective. I kept my face free from impatience. Well, she said finally, if anywhere would have it, Elba's would. Elba's the wealthiest, most successful wine merchant in the Shalon. Her shop was near the port, as was the market. I had never been there, but the woman had been both a patron and a peer of my mother and Helen and a member of the Toilette Guard. Carrie was her daughter. It was she who ran her mother's shop and absorbed all the drink loosened secrets of the world's wine enthusiasts and reported them as a member in training of the guard. And it was she I wanted to speak to. But Nikhil couldn't know that I knew Carrie from my previous life. Nikhil started off into the crowd, pointing out her favorite food vendor on the way. She brought us each grilled shrimp and pineapple on a stick. That sounds good. Dusted in salt and chilled pepper, and ate hers like a child with a pacifier piece of candy. I might be saying that wrong. Pilfeured. At least someone was enjoying themselves. Despite my mission, the sight of the port opening up before me made me gasp. Touring masts, florid snails, and ridging spread out like a leafless forest of all trunks and taunt veins, with the wide blue ocean glittering beyond. So many DHOWS, huge and small, from the king's largest warships to sleek trading vessels to the tiniest fishing craft, and many different boats from other lands all floated in the harbor, while sailors with equally myriad styles of dress and skin tones populated them. The whole world lay beyond this port. Nikhil and I soon reached the shore, a flash stone building with layers of alcove-style windows arching to points and peering down on a bustled street like spying eyes. Never thought of that being like eyes. Interesting. The building also commanded a fantastic view of the comings and goings of the port, and was perfect place to stop in for a bottle or a shipment of wine. Elzva and Kara would be sure to take your secrets with your money. Would be sure to take your seat. Okay. The shop was cool and dim like a cave. Low lamps and bronze scones, leading a soft gleam to the hundreds and hundreds of bottles racked on dozens of shelves. And this was only the first floor. There were no doubt more prize wines on the upper floors and in the packed cellars down below. I recognized Carrie immediately, tall with her smooth fall of black hair that went nearly to her waist now. Her features were too angular to be truly gorgeous, but she was still a strictly handsome figure. I suddenly and uncomfortably remembered her eyes, hovering just above mine as we lay in bed together, peering down at me with mischief and lust. She certainly recognized me too. She turned away from a customer, a wealthy merchant by the looks of him, and Lily dropped her stars and paper-linked tablet. I had to quickly signal to her, a subtle wipe of my hand, palm down, to not recognize me. I was using the Twilight Guard's secret sign language, which both my mother and Helen had begun teaching. And then I held my breath. I had no idea if she would respect my wishes, but I reasoned to hope. Her face immediately smoothed, and she excused herself from the merchant to approach me. I made another gesture toward an oblivious Nikhil. She couldn't know. May I help you? Kara asked politely, so trace of familiarity in her voice. I asked after the bottle of wine I was looking for, all the while making low hand gestures. Need to talk alone. Need a distraction. I patted my purse of coin absolutely and glanced at Nakia, all the while striking up a conversation with Kara about how she'd gotten into the wine trade at such a young age. Let me have one of my employees check for that vintage, she said after a suitable moment of friendly chatter. It might take some time to find, especially if we have to send a runner to one of our other sellers. Feel free to browse or take in the sights of the port. Go outside, she signed. Wait a minute, a half hour. Distraction. I'll send him to find you wherever you are. Even if I managed to get Carla alone, I could only ask her what she knew in vague terms and perhaps hint at an interest in joining the Twilight Guard. I had no intention of doing so, but if I could kindly kindle enough of a friendship, perhaps I could entice her to visit me at the town house. I had no intention of sleeping with her, of course, but she might take a nap, or I could slip some sleeping medicine into a coffee or wine, MOHOL, I know I say that, or something, anything, and then search her soul for answers. A start. Nakia and I wandered outside. Are you sure you want to wait? She asked, speeding into the bright sun, her speckled brown hair uncovered by a scarf, unlike my voluptuous curls that were trapped under deep blue silk. I was beginning to regret in this heat, despite my love of dark colors. We can always have them deliver the bottle to the house. No, I said hurriedly. I mean, I don't want Dad or anyone to ask about it because I don't want to explain why I wanted it. They don't need an they didn't need an excuse to talk about my mother more than they already do. She nodded immediately. She so ready to trust me, and my heart twinkled at my deception, at the fact that there was more to come. To pass the minutes, I ordered a grilled fish wrapped in palm leaves from a street vendor, which would take a while to cook. I timed it as well as I could, purposely moving a short way off to wait, in the shade of fish markets awing. When I saw the grubbled looking boy lurking in the shadow of the wine shop, trying to catch my eye, I gave him the slightest nod and then turned to Nakia. Oh, I think the fish is ready. Do you want to check? Want to check? I'm feeling a little faint. Must be the heat. She shot me a concerned glance, gave the area a cursory scan, and then strode toward the street vendor with the grilled fish. I had to give the boy credit. I didn't see or hear him sneak up behind me. He waited until Nikhil was far away as she would get, and then snatched the coin purse from my hip. I loosened ties for him. Nikhil, my purse, I cried. She spun hand on her sword to see the boy duck through the fish market. Still, she hesitated to go after him. That's how I was going to pay for the wine. I whined in my most pathetic voice. Don't worry, I'll wait right inside the shop. Her eyes narrowed in a flash as if she didn't like the idea of chasing him, but then she was on the move, dashing around the side of the fish market, trying to head him off. Even though I'd seen her in action, she was still shockingly quick or even on her feet. I worried she might catch him and fast. I didn't have time to waste. Turning toward the wine shop, I bumped right into someone. Ooh, for a split second, I thought it might be Carrot Carla, but the chest I'd hit was hard and flat, the shoulders much broad and higher than mine, a man's. When I raised my hand to brace myself, strong fingers caught my wrist in a mangle like grip I grasped, and my gaze shot up in a shrouded face wrapped in a light gray scarf. Familiar eyes stared down into mine. It was him, behind the shroud. Carla had told him I was here, and now he had found me. Rasman. Oh, okay. Number 10, Pretty Secrets. Okay, let me pause for a minute. I'm trying to read about 3 if I can. Let me see what time it is. Okay, a little while. Now I'm going to have to come back. All right, y'all. This is chapter 9. I'll be back. I have to come back on the next one. All right, y'all. Hope y'all enjoying it. Bye. Tell me if y'all are.